Hey guys, what is up? If you remember back in January of 2022, I did a video titled 2022 RV Predictions. I hope you're paying attention. Many of you asked me in the comments of that video, what spare parts, what critical spare parts and supplies and gear do I carry with me? We're going to get into that right now. Details coming up on RV Street. All right, let's get right to it. In that January video, I stressed how important it is to get to know your RV better. Learn how to fix your own stuff, do your own maintenance, do your own PM items, strengthen your inventory of tools, become more self-reliant, and begin to gather and put together a critical spare parts list, and then get those parts. And I finished that video by asking you the what ifs. Remember? What if blah, blah, blah happens? What are you going to do? Do you know how to fix it? Do you have the parts to fix it? And all of that. And when you ask yourself those questions, what if this goes down or what if that goes down and I need it right now? That is a great place to start to compile your list for your RV on what critical spare parts you need. Critical spare parts in Martin's book is absolutely necessary to be prepared while you're traveling and living in your RV. You never know what life's going to throw at you. So what are critical spare parts? These are parts that are critical for you to live in your RV. Parts that you need in a pinch if you get stranded or something breaks down and you need to get your RV back online quickly. Critical spare parts are also parts that are hard to find. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but a lot of parts nowadays, they're not available. And even if they are available, they're in short supply and the prices are just going up and up and up. I brought this up again in January. This situation is not going to get better. Not anytime soon anyway. Now, I totally understand. You can't carry every spare part or critical part that you need. I mean, that's just unrealistic. But everyone should be carrying critical spare parts. Now, we live in a motorhome, and this video is not about critical spare parts for a motorhome. These are RV critical parts. And yes, some of the things that I'll be covering today will be exclusively to motorhomes. But if you have a fifth wheel, a pull behind, whatever, you need to take inventory. I encourage you to take inventory of what critical spare parts you need for your RV. Get those parts, put them in a bin, carry them with you, and you're going to be better prepared. So let's get into the critical spare parts and gear that I carry all the time. This is all the stuff that we're going to cover today. And I even got some stuff under the table. The first topic we're going to cover is water. I mean, there's nothing more critical than having good, pure, safe water all the time, right? So the first thing I'm going to cover here is my water filters. And I carry a lot of them. I carry one full year of water filters, maybe even more than that. But I carry extra inline filters, and then I carry my first SETI filter and my carbon 0.5 micron filters that go into my water canisters in the wet bay. So at any time, no matter where I am, if a filter gets clogged, I get into bad water, I need to change my filter, whatever, I have a year's supply and I buy them once a year. I get all these supplies from my awesome water supply company. I'll put the link down below. A lot of you already know about that. But I've learned, people say, Martin, tell me where you get these parts. Well, I'll put that link below. Continuing with water, I also carry an extra water regulator right here. You have to have a water regulator on your water lines before they go into any RV. If you don't, you're playing with fire. Pardon the pun there, water. And by the way, for everybody, everything I'm going to cover here today is in my Amazon store. I'll get to that later on. Also now concerning water, is I carry an extra toilet valve for my toilet. Now we have a bath and a half, And I guess it was about, I don't know, year and a half ago, one of the valves in one of the toilets went bad. So I had to replace that water valve. Well, I have the identical toilet in my half bath. Went ahead and bought two. So I changed out one on the master bath. That's new now, and I have a spare if either one of those others go out. Continuing with water, I carry an extra water pump. Joni and I use our water pump every single day. We use our fresh water tank every single day. But I ended up also having another pump. This one is a leftover from a while back ago. And this one, I can cannibalize parts off of this. The diaphragm, possibly some outside parts, the screen bowl and so forth. So I actually have two water pumps, one brand new and one that I can get spare parts from. For us, these are extremely critical parts. Gotta have a good working pump. Now this is a little bit different kind of water. In my battery bay, I have two 6-volt Trojan 105 batteries wired in series to one big 12-volt battery. And I installed an automatic watering system on there. It's critical to keep those batteries topped off. So I carry a jug of distilled water in the wet bay and my automatic watering line. But it's so simple. No taking off the caps of the battery, none of that nonsense. You just open up the bottle, the jug of water just like this. You put the end on it in the jug like that. You hook this end to the other line coming off the batteries, and you just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and fill up your batteries, pull it out. You're done. I can fill up my batteries literally getting the water, going over and doing it, and putting it back in about 3 minutes, 4 minutes maybe. The last thing concerning water is I carry a spare water heater circuit board. Water heater circuit boards do go out. Not often, but they do go out. Our rig right now is 10 years old. I take really good care of my water heater. If that ever went down, that would be bad. And with all the kind of the problems we're having with circuit boards being made for all different kinds of components and appliances and all that, I'm like, you know what? I am going to be carrying a spare circuit board. So I carry one of these. Another thing that's really important is what? In fact, other than water and air, what is another really important thing in our rigs? It's the refrigerator, right? I mean, you've got to have that thing working right. And I have done a lot of upgrades on our Norcold refrigerator. It performs flawlessly. I mean, even in hot temperatures, that thing will stay 35, 36, 37 degrees with no problem. But what if, remember those what ifs? What if that circuit board went out and I'm stuck out in the middle of nowhere or the board's not available? Well, I carry a new board, my Norcold power board. It's a circuit board. I'm not going to open it up. It's still taped up. As I said, I did a lot of different kinds of upgrades and work on my fridge, on my Norcold. And one of the things I did is I installed fans in the back of the refrigerator. You know, like from when you approach the outside of the rig and you remove that access door. Well, I installed a fan at the bottom and one way at the top, and that helps move that hot air out the top of the RV and takes the stress off of the refrigerator, and it really helps keeping that thing working right. Well, I carry an extra pair of fans too. If those fans go out, my refrigerator is going to start performing a lot less. And so I carry extra fridge fans for that cooling. Let's move on to a couple of electrical things. I've carried this with me from the very beginning. It's a battery charger. It's a 3 amp or a 15 amp battery charger. You simply plug it in and put these alligator clips on the battery, whether it's your tow vehicle battery, whether it's your chassis battery, whether it would be your house batteries. So let's just say you don't have any power, right? You're boondocking, the grid goes down, or like that big winter freeze that came through Texas and all that. Well, what in the heck are you gonna plug this into? Well, there's several ways to do that. You could just turn on the inverter into the rig, plug this into an outlet, and put these alligator clips on your battery. Another thing that I would do is I have my Bluetti. I could just plug this simply into the Bluetti and put these on the battery. Or I could start up my small Honda generator, plug it in, charge the batteries. I mean, there are multiple ways to get 120 power for this to utilize. Now, have I used this? Oh, you bet I have. This is just a portable, small battery charger, and it's for emergencies. I want to be prepared in the event that I need a charger like this. Having one of these is even good to help a friend next door if his batteries are dead. So you can use this on the rig, you can use this for your tow vehicle, all different kind of things. So I carry one of these. I've never talked to you much. I don't even think I've even mentioned it, maybe once. But I've installed 5-star tune on our rig. And what 5-star tune does, in a nutshell, is it changes the way the transmission shifts. It makes it a much better way of shifting and climbing and so forth. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's why I installed it. It's a little pricey little thing. It's a program. You just plug this into the OBD2 port and download your factory settings into this 5-star tune, and then you replace it with the 5-star tune settings. But in addition to that, it also reads codes and clears codes. It's kind of a double purpose. So if you have something that goes wrong with your rig and you need to read the codes, I use this. I can read a code, I can research what's going on with that. That code will kind of direct me into the path of where I should be looking, and it'll also clear codes. So this is a good thing to have in an emergency. Now, if you don't have 5-star tune, you can get a regular code reader. There's lots of different ones out there. Some are good, some are not. But I think having one on board is a smart idea. Continuing on with some electrical, we have 2 AC units. We have 3 capacitors, and I carry spares for all 3. I take care of my own AC unit. You know, I do my annual maintenance, and I clean that evap coil and do some other things in there that I've showed you. But I also carry these capacitors. Any one of these capacitors goes out, I can replace it. These things are not that expensive. Different ones for different AC units, right? But if you ever decide to change one of these, make sure you do your homework on how to properly change these. These are not hard to do, but they can be dangerous because these things pack a lot of power. So you need to be very careful. It'll be unplugged, don't have the generator running. Remove the wires separately each time. Never touch the poles together, and learn how to discharge one of these properly once you remove it and replace it with the new one. Back when we bought this unit, back in 16, I really didn't like the way the headlights worked. I mean, the lenses were all fogged up. I had to polish those all out. But even the factory bulbs themselves, they were junk. They didn't give much illumination in front of you. So I changed those bulbs to LEDs. I kept the old ones just in case something goes wrong with the new replacement. At least I have a backup bulb to get me where I need to go. And that's a good practice too, just like I showed you on the water pump, okay? This one I can use for parts if something goes bad. I may not have to replace the whole pump. I may just be able to replace a part. Headlight goes out, I got a spare bulb. The one prior to that, it'll get me to where I need to be. And that brings me to my second thing here I wanted to show you. This is my factory Serpentine belt. This is the main belt on the front of the engine. And when I bought the unit, as you know, I went from front to back, bottom to top. And I spent months, 18 months actually, doing all kinds of different things to this rig before we went full time. But one of them also was replacing and getting a new Serpentine belt. But I keep the old one just in case something happened to that new one. I'm not going to get stranded. I'm not going to be hustling around trying to find the right belt. And I'll tell you what, these belts actually can be pretty difficult to find. I mean, there's multiple part numbers out there, and very few places will actually have this in stock. So if you have a motorhome, I highly encourage you to find out what belt you use, verify the part number, order it, get it and keep it in your spare parts bin. I also carry some extra heater hose, okay? You never know, you might be stranded and blow a hose. I don't want to have to drive 50 miles to find the right kind of hose. I carry it with me. And the last thing concerning the engine is I carry an oil filter. And the reason I carry an oil filter is that you never know what you could hit on the ground, fly up, puncture this thing out in the middle on the highway, out in the middle of nowhere. Who knows what could happen? But I want to at least have an oil filter. Now, I always carry oil, but man, I need an oil filter. So I do carry one of these. Now, some of you may remember about 3 years ago, we were going in through Pennsylvania. We were towing our tow car, and we ended up hitting this object. It flipped up and put a hole in our tow car engine about the size of a football. I mean, it put us out of commission for about 3 weeks. We got it fixed, everything was fine. But that same kind of thing could happen on the motorhome. Those oil filters kind of hang down and they're a little bit vulnerable. So if I ever hit a stick or a piece of metal or whatever and that thing flipped up and put a hole in the bottom of the oil filter, well, I'm going to immediately be pulling off to the side, but at least I have an oil filter that can get me out of that jam. And besides, remember the last time I tried to get this oil filter? 3 Walmarts didn't have it, and I had to order from a Ford dealership. Took me 5 days to get it. Times are tough today, guys. Times are tough. Now, in this bin here is all of my generator stuff. I have 2 generators, right? 2 gas generators. I have my big Onan 5500, and I have my new small Honda generator. Love that thing. These are all the critical spare parts and parts that I need to do my annual maintenance with. So I have a new air filter for my Onan. I have my pliers for my oil filter. I have 2 quarts of oil. I have an oil filter, a fuel filter, a fuel pump, and an oil pressure sensor. Now, some of you have been asking me about this. You said, Martin, I went to your Amazon store and I see everything in there except for the oil pressure switch. Well, this item is kind of a unique item to find. And sometimes it's available on Amazon, sometimes it's not. So the other day before I got ready to do this video, I called Onan and I chatted with him online. And I said, I even go to your website, plug in this part number, and it doesn't come up. It says call customer service. I said, what's going on? They said, this particular part number, you have to call a regular representative, get the part, pay for it, and then we'll ship it to you. I went online and I found another supplier for these. It's a small engine supplier. And so I'll put that link down below. All the stuff that I'm talking about, there's a little special caveats. Go to the description text and you'll see all the different little tips that I give you and where you can get this. For my Honda generator, I got everything I need here to do its maintenance. I got air filter, spark plugs, gaskets. I even got a different jet for it if I get into higher altitudes, and of course, extra oil. Now, another thing that I carry for an emergency is, what if I get stuck? What if I get stuck in mud or dirt or sand or whatever? Well, I carry a bunch of wood, but I may have to dig myself out, right? I mean, I just love this thing. It's so compact. I don't want to carry a whole bunch of big tools, right? So I got a compact survival shovel, and I can make it different lengths. It has different kinds of accessories on here. There's more information about this in my Amazon store, but I carry a shovel, a compact shovel, to be able to get me out of a bind. It acts as an axe, it acts as a saw, all kinds of things. But look how small that thing, look at that. I mean, is that not cool? It doesn't take up hardly any amount of room. It zips up in a nice little pouch. Love it. The next thing is emergency tapes. I have emergency tapes for a multitude of different things. I have a big roll of Dicor emergency tape, 4-inch tape on the roof. In the event I ever had a catastrophic accident, a branch broke through or something like that, I carry roof tape. But these are other kinds of emergency tapes that I keep on hand in the event of different kinds of, like a blown heater hose or a water hose. Or now you take this one here. I'm not really sure what the exact name of it is. It's in my Amazon store. It's 950 PSI, but it's emergency tape, and it stretches and it bonds. And this got me out of a jam a couple of years ago. On the other side of our rig, we have the access door to our half bath. That half bath, when you open up the dump valve, it goes down into the maciator pump. And that maciator pump pumps that water across the back of the coach and into the dump sewer hose. Well, I began to get a leak down there, and it was very tight to see where in the heck that leak was. It was small. I've never had to replace that. This tape took care of that small leak with no problem. But I also carry some extra baling wire. I carry magnetic tape. I carry a steel stick in case I need to drill something out. This is by JB Weld, right? And I need to fill that in and re-drill it and tap it or something like that. I carry steel stick. This is my clear tape to repair an awning or a topper. Now mine are new, but you never know. You know, you might get into a situation, something come in there and hit it, and it cut it, or it's starting to split a little bit at the ends. I've got emergency tape to fix that. And then there's my redundant power sources that I have now all the time. You never know when you're not going to have power. And I worked all last year coming up with a plan that if we don't have power, we don't have grid power, we're boondocking or whatever, I didn't want to rely just on my onboard 5500 generator. I mean, it's an incredibly inefficient way to produce power. It drinks lots of gas. That's not good these days. Gas is expensive, right? So I spent all last year coming up with this comprehensive, redundant emergency power plan. And it ended up being 5 different pieces. I've done a complete video on that. But I did want to cover, that was all part of this critical parts, being prepared for emergencies. If something happens, I do not want to be stranded, running around. Nope, I've already taken care of that. We got this. Now, before I go into my closing comments about carrying a spare tire, I'd like to just say thank you to all my fans and new fans that have been using my Amazon store to buy whatever it is you need, whether it's RV related or not. I mean, you guys have been so supportive in using our Amazon store for everything you need. I just can't thank you enough. For those of you who don't know, the link to my Amazon store is
down there
in the description text. Using my Amazon store for everything you need is a great way to say thank you, Martin. Thank you for taking the time to making these videos and helping the RV community. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Well, after going all over this type of stuff, you notice I didn't mention carrying a spare tire. Well, for a rig like ours or other big rigs like this, I mean, it's just not feasible to carry a spare tire. They're too big, they're too heavy, and besides that, you need to carry all the big gear you need, tools and jacks and all that, to be able to change a tire. So for me, I pay an annual fee and I carry CoachNet. CoachNet is a roadside assistance program, and I'm not affiliated with them, but I've used them for years and years, and they'll take care of if you end up getting a flat tire, or you need a tire repair, or you need towing, and all that kind of stuff. They're specifically geared towards the RV community, and they can handle big rigs like this. I'll put a link to that also down below if you want to go to their website and check out their plans and all that. Now, if you have a towable RV, you may very well be able to carry a spare tire with you, possibly on the back bumper or maybe up underneath the RV. But always make sure that that spare is aired up with the proper PSI at all times. And watch the dot date. Don't let that dot date expire. A lot of people take a spare tire and it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? I mean, I've never used it. It's got plenty of tread on it. No. That tire needs to be within that lifespan of that tire. So watch that dot date. Don't be fooled by it still has good tread on it, but it's 9 years old or whatever. And also, if you carry your spare up under the RV, there's going to be a mechanism up there where you have to lower that spare tire and all that. You have to service that often too. We drive these RVs through rain and mud and all that, and that whole mechanism can get rusted and corroded. Then in an emergency, you try to get that thing down and it's jammed or corroded and frozen. So service that mechanism also. What I would recommend, if it was me, and I had an RV that I was able to change out my own spare and I carried a spare with me, I actually would go and rehearse changing a spare. Even though I don't need it, I'd want to make sure that I have the right jacks, the right tools, and the know-how on exactly how to change that spare tire. So that would be a good little exercise for all of you to do if you have a towable. Remember, if you click my logo right under this video, that will take you to my home page. On my home page, you'll see the playlist tab. Click that, and every video I've ever done will be right there on that page. Or, as another option, see that magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner? Click inside there and type what you're looking for. If I've done a video on that subject, it will list it. So please let me know what you guys carry for your RV, for critical spare parts and gear that you need in an emergency. I mean, put those down in the comments below because we all can learn from each other. And I hope most of you actually go to the comments after every video. I mean, there's always a ton of good information down there, and I many times will answer other questions down there that kind of expand on what we've talked about. It's really good idea to go to the comments. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the critical spare parts and gear that I carry. So until next time, this is RV Street. Stick around.